power rankings for week 8. The results are in. There's a few movers and a few teams who stay the same. Nobody who goes too dramatically except for one team, and yeah, some of the teams who are on the bye kind of get pushed around a bit. We'll start at 15. No surprise, some Wolves. You may hear my son in the next room running around happily. He's taken to saying go the Crusaders and go the Hurricanes when rugby's on TV, so that must be the reason for his joy. Anyway, some Wolves, they're 6 from 0, none from 6, whichever way you want to look at it. They haven't won a game. They keep getting smashed. They're pretty much on their own. Like, I've loosely kind of grouped all the teams into kind of there's like a leading pack, there's a middle, and then there's the bottom, and the Sun Wolves are the bottom. That's it. They are the bottom team by a mile. Next, 14, no change, another loss. It's the Blues. So the Blues have got a 1-win, 5-loss record. They've picked up a few bonus points, which kind of keeps them out of that ultimate black hole where the Sun Wolves are at. But they're probably only capable of moving up one spot if they were to have a win next week. So it's not pretty times for the Blues. They are set to be rooted in this bottom row for at least a week or two unless they can turn things around. Next, the Jaguares. So they are down one spot. So their record moves to 5 losses and 2 wins. Again, not very pretty reading. The Crusaders really went into Argentina and just dealt to them this weekend. They've got a tour coming up, which doesn't make anything easier. They've had a kind of home stint where they needed to pick up results and just didn't really get what they would have wanted. So unless the away form can improve, I would say these 3 teams are going to be pretty good buddies down at the bottom for quite a while. Next, a team on the bye who's been pushed down 1 by another team winning is the Bulls. So, like I said, on the bye, nothing doing. It's just that a team who was below them has had a good win and jumped up. Next, at 11, is the Stormers. The Stormers are down a spot. They had a pretty big loss this weekend against the Lions, albeit away, so it's another away loss. I keep saying that if they can get some home wins, then they might be able to balance this out, but the schedule is really not kind to them this season. Injuries are not kind to them. They've got a bye, thankfully, so hopefully some tired bodies can get rested up. Some big names can come back into the team, and maybe they can kind of shore up the rest of the season, push for a playoff spot. But at the moment, 5 losses, 3 wins, and a couple of times they've had a really a big number put against them. It just doesn't do them any favors in terms of power rankings. Number 10 and down 2 spots are the Reds. So the Reds' record is at evens now, 3 wins and 3 losses, probably still higher than they were expected to be this season. If you'd asked a lot of people, where do you think the Reds will be compared to the Blues at the kind of not quite halfway point of the season, but almost getting there. Most people, I think, would have picked the Blues, but in the battle of the 2 colours, red is doing a lot better than blue. So it was a big loss, which kind of hurts them a bit. Their record comes even. Still not the end of the world, but they do seem to, I guess, be susceptible to big scores if things don't quite go right. We saw that in the first week, well, their first week, with that red card, yellow card game. And we've seen it in a different way this week against the Brumbies. So still a young team, and I think they'll definitely bounce back, but it is 10th for them this week. At 9th, this week's big mover with 4 spots jumped is the Brumbies. So the Brumbies equal record now with the Reds, so it kind of makes sense that they are side by side with 3 wins, 3 losses apiece. A big home win helps them. Putting on a whole lot of points is gonna assist you in climbing the power rankings, but it's ultimately the wins and losses that'll do it for you. So they will need to continue their winning ways, and it doesn't get any easier for them when they travel to Dunedin next week to play the Highlanders. And rounding out kind of this chasing pack in 8th is the Sharks, who despite losing are actually up one spot. So their record is 2 wins, 4 losses and a draw. So you might argue that the Brumbies and the Reds should be above them, having had an extra win. But the Sharks have had a couple of results where they didn't get beaten by a whole lot. Like against the Lions, who are a tough team, and against the Highlanders, who are a tough team. Away from home, they got bonus points. So it's kind of, I guess, a bit of credit going to them for that. And the 2 wins they've had over the Blues and the Sunwolves, they've just destroyed them. So that probably bumps them up a little bit more above these guys. But there's really not much between these teams. So it's not going to take much. Like the Sunwolves are way back. The Blues and the Jaguares are kind of towards the tail end of this chasing group. And these guys are all kind of much of a muchness. So there is a big gap, though, between the next team. That's the Highlanders, who don't change. They're coming off a bye. Second bye of the season, so their record is still 3 wins, 2 losses. Yeah, they need to get some more games because they've spent a couple of weeks sitting on their hands, or at least training. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see how they go next week against the Brumbies. Brumbies having had a good win. The Highlanders having had a bye. So, but the bye didn't hurt the Highlanders last time, so no reason to expect them to do anything other than come out firing. Next, and down 2 spots, is the Rebels, who also coming off a bye. The Rebels' record is 4 wins and 2 losses. When they got beaten against the Hurricanes, it kind of hurt them in terms of power rankings. But this week with the bye and most of the top teams, well, I think all of the teams above them had wins. It kind of makes sense that they dropped, but with the way things work, as other teams have buys, things should even out. In 5th, having had another good win, the Lions back to winning ways, up 1 spot. Record moves to 5-3-0. So the Lions are about to go on tour. The touring is hard, we all know that, and they're going to have to do better than their kind of South African counterparts who are down here. Otherwise, they risk being pushed down, or at least risk being kind of caught up by those other South African teams. So a record which is in the positive, and they're well ahead in South African conference, but they are not that all-dominating team that we saw last season. That's for sure. In 4th, and up 1 spot, is the Waratahs. So you kind of have to kind of balance their big performance over the weekend with the fact that it was against the Sunwolves. But still credit for them to travelling to Japan and going on and putting in a 50-point performance, getting a bonus point win. Yeah, they did all that they could do to bump themselves up in this game. They couldn't have done much more. And yeah, it's the necessary result for them, and no one's shocked by it. But yeah, it's definitely helping them in terms of power rankings. Top 3, down 1 spot, is the Chiefs. So the Chiefs down despite having a win seems kind of contradictory, but that win over the Blues was close at home, over a team which you have to, at this point, kind of consider as a weak team. So you would have thought that they would have won by at least, I don't know, a try's worth, more than 2 points anyway. So, I mean, I know they've got injuries, and, you know, they've had a couple of New Zealand derbies in a row, so they've got some tired bodies, but you got to beat the Blues by more than 2. I'm not saying they're going down. I mean, they've gone down 1 spot, but that's only because this team pulled off a big victory, and that was the Crusaders. The Crusaders, despite their own injuries and having travelled New Zealand, South Africa, Argentina, have gone into Argentina and just humiliated kind of the Jaguares. So I thought when the bookies were giving the Crusaders a 15-point, you know, they were saying that the Crusaders were going to win by 15 points. I thought that was maybe being a bit harsh to the Jaguares, because of the travel and because of the Jaguares' last game against the Lions coming off the bye. I thought there were a few factors that might push the Jaguares forward. Crusaders proved me wrong. They are just too strong. They are looking good. Their record moves to 5-2-0. although they do have a bye, so they've played a game more than the Chiefs. And then some other teams as well. So it's all up to the Chiefs to get another win to kind of push themselves ahead while the Crusaders are resting. Number 1, and it's the first time for a while that a team has retained number 1, but the Hurricanes continue on, only just with that win over the Sharks, but a win is a win. Record moves to 5 wins and 1 loss. They're on quite the roll, having got 5 games in a row. Them and the Chiefs since first round have just not dropped any points. Well, not any losses anyway. Not always getting bonus points, but still. So they'll be disappointed with this most recent week that they didn't get a bigger victory over the Sharks, but they will mostly just be happy that they managed to grind out a win because the Sharks had them dead and done for all money, but Hurricanes still find a way to do it. So yeah, that's it for this week. Hurricanes at number 1. Sunwolves still at 15. Yeah, and like I said, it's 1 to 7 is definitely a leading pack. 8 to kind of, I guess you can include 13 and 14 are a chasing pack, and the Sunwolves are just multiple wins probably behind catching up the team in 14th. So yes, what are your guys' thoughts? Who's too high, who's too low? How do you think these teams are going to go looking forward? Are the Chiefs going to be able to hit up the Hurricanes for a win? Because that's a 1 versus 3 battle coming up this week. And at the other end, it's a 14 versus 15 battle with the Blues traveling to Tokyo. Looking at the numbers, I still think even if the Sunwolves were to beat the Blues by kind of 50, I don't think that they would pass the Blues on the power rankings yet, just because their performances this season have been that lacking. So Blues not quite at risk of dropping to that 15th spot yet, but it would put them close anyway if they manage to go in and get hammered. But Blues got a chance to maybe bump up above the Jaguars if they get a win. We will see how it goes. Like I said, let me know your thoughts, and yeah, I'll talk to you again next time.